Imagine this. You walk into work thinking it's just another normal day, and suddenly everything changes. A conversation, a short meeting, a few words, and just like that, you're told your job is over. No warning, no clear explanation, no time to process. You leave feeling shocked, confused, maybe even powerless, and like most people in that moment, you think there's nothing you can do. You assume the decision is final, that your employer had the right to do it, and that your only option is to move on. But what if that's not the full story? What if, in that exact moment, your situation actually triggered a protection under the law, one that could give you the right to fight back and even recover money? Because in the United States, not every termination is as simple as it looks. And sometimes, what feels like the end of your job is actually the beginning of a legal opportunity you didn't even know existed. Most jobs in the U.S. operate under what's called at-will employment. This means an employer can terminate an employee at any time, with or without giving a reason. On the surface, this makes it seem like employers have complete control. And that belief is exactly why so many people walk away without questioning what happened. But here's what often gets overlooked. At will does not mean without limits. There are clear boundaries, and when those boundaries are crossed, the situation changes completely. One of the most important limits involves retaliation. If you were fired shortly after raising a concern, whether it was about unpaid wages, unsafe conditions, discrimination, or harassment, that timing matters. The law protects your right to speak up. And if your employer responds by terminating you, that response may not be legal. In fact, retaliation is one of the strongest types of claims because it directly connects your action to their decision. What might have seemed like a simple firing can quickly become something much more serious. Think about it. Did you recently question your paycheck? Did you report something that didn't feel right? Did you refuse to participate in something you believed was wrong? These moments may have felt small at the time, but they can become incredibly important when viewed in context. Because the law doesn't just look at the termination itself, it looks at everything leading up to it. Discrimination is another critical factor. Employers cannot legally fire you based on protected characteristics such as race, gender, religion, age, disability, or other legally recognized categories. But discrimination isn't always obvious. It doesn't always come with clear statements or direct evidence. Often, it appears in patterns: who gets disciplined, who gets promoted, who gets let go. If your termination fits into a pattern that suggests bias, it may not be lawful. Another situation that changes everything is when you are fired for exercising your rights. This could include taking legally protected leave, requesting accommodations, or participating in an investigation. These actions are protected for a reason: to ensure that employees are not punished for doing what the law allows them to do. If your termination is connected to any of these actions, it raises serious questions about its legality. What makes this even more important is how quickly things can shift once a violation is identified. A termination that seemed final can suddenly become the center of a legal claim, and in many cases, that claim can lead to compensation. This could include back pay, which covers the wages you would have earned if you had not been terminated, as well as other forms of financial recovery depending on the situation. But here's where many people make a mistake. They don't look back. They accept the termination and move forward without reviewing what actually happened. They don't consider the timing, the circumstances, or the patterns that led up to it. And because of that, they miss the opportunity to recognize that their situation might not have been legal in the first place. Documentation becomes incredibly important in these moments. Emails, messages, performance reviews, schedules, and any records of conversations. All of these can help build a clear picture of what happened. They show the timeline, the context, and the details that might otherwise be forgotten. Without documentation, it becomes harder to connect the dots. With it, the situation becomes much clearer. It's also important to understand that taking action doesn't always mean going straight into a lawsuit. It starts with awareness. It starts with recognizing that something may not be right. From there, you can explore your options, seek advice, and decide how to move forward. The key is that you are no longer assuming that the decision was untouchable. You are evaluating it with a different perspective. Another powerful aspect of these laws is that they don't just focus on the employer's intent. They focus on the impact of their actions. An employer might claim that the termination was for one reason, but if the evidence shows a different pattern, that explanation can be challenged. This is why context matters so much. It's not just about what was said, it's about what actually happened. Many employees also don't realize that there are time limits for taking action. Waiting too long can reduce your options or even prevent you from pursuing a claim altogether. This is why awareness is so important. The sooner you recognize that something might be wrong, the more options you have. Emotionally, being fired can feel like a loss of control. It can make you feel like everything has been decided for you. But legally, that's not always the case. The law exists to ensure that decisions like this are made within certain boundaries. And when those boundaries are ignored, you have the right to challenge what happened. What changes everything is your perspective. Instead of seeing the termination as the end, you begin to see it as something that can be examined, questioned, and potentially challenged. You move from a position of acceptance to a position of awareness, and that shift opens the door to possibilities you may not have considered before. Because the truth is, not every firing is final in the way it seems. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a process that can lead to accountability and compensation. But that process only starts when you recognize that your situation might fall under the protections of the law. So, if you've been fired and you walked away thinking there's nothing you can do, take a moment to reconsider. Think about what happened before that decision. Think about any concerns you raised, any patterns you noticed, any situations that didn't feel right, because those details matter more than you might think. At the end of the day, your job may have been taken away, but your rights were not. They don't disappear the moment you walk out the door. They remain, giving you the ability to question, to understand, and to act if necessary. And sometimes all it takes is one law, one protection you didn't know about, to completely change the outcome of your situation, not just emotionally, but financially as well. Because what felt like a loss in the moment could actually become an opportunity to recover what you deserve.